Alien Beastwoman soldier who crashed into my farm. A fiery descent toward the morning quiet, shaking the very foundations of Knox's secluded farm. He found the wreckage, a mangled metal cocoon, and inside it, something that defied every explanation, every law of nature he knew. What would he do with an injured creature that seemed to be both woman and beast, wearing armor from another star? The question hung heavy in the dust-filled air, demanding an answer he didn't possess. He pushed past the initial shock, his gaze sweeping over the mangled remains. The impact crater, a fresh scar on his oldest pasture, glowed faintly with residual heat. Twisted metal parts, unlike any he had ever seen, shimmered in the rising sun. A strange, acrid scent hung in the air, a mix of scorched earth and something metallic, almost organic. His jaw tightened. This was far beyond a downed drone or a meteor fragment. He cautiously approached the largest piece of debris, half buried in the churned soil. It resembled a cocoon, its shell ripped open like a tin can. Inside, nestled amidst a web of damaged wiring and shimmering fragments, lay the source of his bewilderment. It was a creature, undeniably bipedal yet unmistakably alien. Orange fur, thick and vibrant, covered its entire form, sleek against what looked like highly advanced dark combat armor. The armor itself appeared fused to its body in places, cracked and sparking intermittently. Its limbs were long, powerful, ending in digits tipped with what could only be claws, though they were currently clenched still. A guttural sound, a pained gasp, escaped its lips. Knox stopped short. The creature's head lifted fractionally. Large, intelligent eyes, the color of molten gold, fixed on him. They held a potent mix of defiance, fear, and excruciating pain. It was a soldier, he realized, despite the beast-like features. A warrior brought low. He took another step, slowly, deliberately. "Are you all right?" he asked, the words feeling utterly inadequate. The creature flinched, a low growl rumbling in its chest. It tried to shift, but a mangled limb gave way, eliciting another sharp gasp. A dark fluid, not quite blood, welled from a deep gash on its side, staining the orange fur. "Easy now," Knox murmured, raising his hands in a placating gesture. He wasn't a doctor, but he knew a bad wound when he saw one. His farmer's instincts kicked in, overriding the shock of the impossible. This wasn't some cosmic mystery to ponder. This was an injured being in dire need. He knelt, cautiously assessing the wreckage. The armor, though damaged, seemed to be part of the problem, pinning a portion of its leg. He needed to free it, and fast. The creature watched him, its golden eyes unblinking, tracking every move. He could feel the raw intensity of its gaze, a silent threat, a silent plea. "I need to get you out," he stated, his voice low and steady. He ignored the strange energy readings flickering from the debris, the alien technology. His focus was singular: aid. He found a loose panel, twisted and hot, and pulled at it with surprising strength. The metal groaned, protesting. The creature made another sound, less a growl, more a strained vocalization. It sounded like Vandross. Knox paused. "Vandross," he repeated, testing the word. The creature nodded, a slight pained movement. He continued to work, prying at the wreckage with his bare hands, ignoring the scrapes and burns. The armor was surprisingly pliable in its damaged state, allowing him to gradually free the trapped limb. The fluid continued to seep, a constant reminder of the urgency. Finally, with a grunt, he pulled the last piece of shrapnel away. The creature collapsed slightly, a shudder running through its body. It was heavy, far heavier than it looked, its muscle density evident even in its weakened state. "All right," Knox said, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of a hand. "Can you move?" It tried, but its legs buckled. Its eyes, however, still burned with an unyielding spirit. It was a fighter even now. Knox didn't hesitate. He gently slid his arms under its form, supporting its back and legs. The orange fur was surprisingly soft beneath his touch, a stark contrast to the hard armor and the raw power it exuded. He lifted, grunting with effort. The creature tensed, a low warning sound escaping, but it did not fight him. Perhaps it understood. He carried it away from the smoldering crater, towards the sanctuary of his old barn. The rising sun cast long shadows, painting the surreal scene in hues of gold and dust. The barn, with its familiar scent of hay and old wood, felt like the only sane place left on his farm. Inside, the light was dim and cool. He carefully lowered the creature onto a pile of fresh hay. It landed with a soft sigh, its eyes still on him, wary but less hostile. Its chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. Knox rummaged through a dusty toolbox, pulling out a roll of clean cloth and a bottle of antiseptic he used for cuts on his livestock. He poured some water into a bucket. This might sting, he warned, though he knew the words were likely meaningless. He cleaned the wound on its side, his hands surprisingly gentle despite their callous nature. The creature hissed, a sharp intake of breath, but held remarkably still. He tore a strip from the clean cloth, fashioning a makeshift bandage. As he worked, he noticed more details, intricate patterns etched into the remaining armor, the way its ears twitched, picking up sounds he couldn't hear. It was beautiful in a wild, dangerous way. When he finished, the creature looked at the bandage, then back at him. It made a series of soft, clicking sounds, followed by a guttural word, sharing. Knox pointed to himself. Knox. Knox, it repeated, its voice a low rumble, still rough but clearer now. Knox, water. It pointed to the bucket with a clawed finger. Knox offered the bucket. Sharing, as he now knew her, drank deeply, her throat working visibly. The warrior's defiance had softened, replaced by the raw need of the injured. He sat back on his heels, watching her. Her golden eyes met his, and for the first time he saw something beyond pain or defiance. He saw a flicker of curiosity, maybe even a nascent trust. "You're safe here, Sharing," he said quietly. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. She didn't understand all his words, he knew, but the tone, the gentle handling, the quiet competence of his actions, these things were universal. This soft skin heals, not harms. The thought, alien and clear, echoed in the quiet barn. Sharing watched Knox, his calloused hands, his steady gaze. He had pulled her from the wreckage, tended her wounds, offered water. He had not sought to capture nor to exploit. He simply helped. A profound realization settled within her. He was not an enemy. This human, this farmer, was an unexpected refuge. The first spark of an alliance, born not of pacts or treaties, but of raw necessity and quiet compassion, ignited between them in the silent, hay-scented air. Days folded into a week. Sharing's deep wounds, though still visible, began a slow, steady mend under Knox's consistent care. He applied salves made from local herbs, changed bandages, and ensured she always had water. She watched him, absorbing his movements, his quiet efficiency. Language became a bridge built word by painstaking word. "Water," Knox would say, holding the bucket. Sharing would repeat it, her throat rumbling, then point to the bucket. "Food," he offered, presenting a bowl of stew. "Fudge," she echoed, tasting the unfamiliar flavors with caution, then a flicker of appreciation. Her communication, initially guttural, gained structure. "Transport down," she rumbled one morning, pointing a clawed finger at the distant wreckage visible through the barn door. "Shot." Knox nodded, his gaze distant, processing the implications. "An attack. On her." He watched her pace, a restless energy returning to her frame as her strength increased. Her golden eyes often fixed on the remnants of her combat gear. She spent hours trying to manipulate a damaged panel, her strong fingers prying, twisting. Her efforts were fruitless. The metal was too thick, the internal mechanisms too intricate for brute force. She lacked the specialized tools of her world. Knox observed her frustration. He saw the warrior within, desperate to reclaim her purpose. He walked from the barn to his small, cluttered workshop, returning with a selection of his own tools. He held up a sturdy steel wrench. "Try this," he said, handing it to her. Sharing took it, her brow furrowed. It was crude compared to her own instruments, but it felt solid, purposeful. She placed it against a twisted component. Knox knelt beside her, demonstrating the leverage, the precise angle. He didn't speak, just showed. A silent partnership began. She learned to use the human tools with surprising dexterity, adapting her alien strength to their simple mechanics. Together, they made slow progress, dismantling damaged sections, exposing the intricate circuits beneath. It was a painstaking process, but the shared task created a rhythm, a quiet understanding between them. As they worked, Knox would sometimes speak of his life. "The spring rains are good this year," he said one afternoon, gesturing towards the newly green fields. "Means a strong harvest." He explained the cycles of planting and growth, the daily grind of a farmer's existence. He spoke of his family, long gone, and the quiet solitude of his days. Sharon listened, her golden eyes fixed on him, absorbing not just the words but the cadence of his voice, the subtle shifts in his expression. She began to offer glimpses of her own world. "On Vandros we build," she said, her voice softer now, less a growl. "Cities that touch the clouds, machines that fly beyond stars. My unit, we protect the vulnerable, enforce justice." She spoke of strict martial order, of loyalty forged in fire, of the profound sense of purpose she had known. Knox imagined a world of towering spires and star-spanning vessels, a stark contrast to his fields and dirt. He saw the pride in her posture when she spoke of her unit, the deep conviction in her eyes. He understood duty, though his was to the land, not a star-spanning military. He saw past the alien warrior, recognizing a being with fierce loyalty, a profound sense of duty, and a personal code she lived by. Sharon, in turn, found herself profoundly affected by Knox. His unwavering kindness, his quiet self-reliance, his connection to the earth beneath his feet. He had saved her, asked for nothing in return, and shared his world without judgment. He was not a warrior, not a leader of legions, but his spirit held a quiet strength she had rarely encountered. His hands, though calloused, were capable, healing, building. His world is small, yet his spirit is vast. The thought settled within her, unexpected and warm. He tended his farm, his animals, his broken alien visitor with the same gentle competence. He understood the cycles of life, the necessity of patience, the value of hard work. He had shown her a form of strength she had not known existed beyond the battlefield. A deep, quiet respect began to grow, weaving itself into the fabric of their strange, tentative alliance. They were two beings from different worlds, yet in the quiet solitude of his barn, a profound connection was taking root. The energy blast scorched the barn wall where Knox had stood a breath ago, leaving a smoking crater. Sharon's grip on his arm was iron, pulling him further into the dusty hay. Her golden eyes, usually calm, now flared with a predatory intensity. "What was that?" Knox asked, pushing himself up, scanning the open barn door. "Krona Collective," Sharon hissed, a low rumble in her throat. She pointed towards the sky, her finger a blur. "Their recon drone. They track my vessel's signature. They want the data core." Knox looked from the scorch mark to Sharon, then to the sky. The peaceful silence of his farm had been irrevocably shattered. "Krona Collective," he repeated, the name foreign and menacing. "What is it?" "A military corporation," she explained, her voice clipped, professional, "rival to my faction. They seek to exploit new resource-rich systems. My transport carried sensitive data detailing their movements, their targets, critical reconnaissance." She moved with renewed urgency, pulling at the still-damaged console of her wreckage. "They know I survived. They will send ground forces." Knox watched her, his mind racing. This was far beyond anything he had ever dealt with. Yet his farmer's instinct to protect his home, his land, kicked in. "We need a plan," he stated, his voice calm despite the adrenaline. He looked around the barn, then out towards the fields and the distant woods. "What exactly do they want from you?" "The data core," Sharon replied, tapping the console. "It holds everything. My mission logs, their strategic vulnerabilities. If it falls into their hands, my faction loses a critical advantage." She tore a panel off the console, revealing a small, glowing device. "This is it." She held up a palm-sized metallic cube. its surface pulsating with faint, intricate light. Knox saw the desperation in her movements, the weight of her duty pressing down on her. "Can you hide it?" he asked. "Not effectively," she shook her head. "It emits a faint energy signature. They can track it. The only way to truly secure it is to reactivate its full encryption, but my systems are too damaged." She looked at him, frustration evident in her features. "My combat gear, my vessel's defenses, they are compromised. Your tools, they are too crude for this." Knox walked over, picking up a heavy wrench. "Crude, maybe. But sometimes crude is reliable. What kind of defenses do you have on Vandros?" "Automated turrets, energy shields, cloaking fields," Sharing listed, her golden eyes scanning the barn's rustic interior with a flicker of disdain. "Not wooden walls and rusted wire." Knox nodded slowly. "No, not those, but I know this land. Every ditch, every rise, every patch of thicket, we can use that." He gestured towards the main entrance of the barn, then to the fields beyond. "They'll come by land. They'll need to approach through my property. That gives us an advantage." Sharing paused, considering his words. She had never fought a battle without advanced technology, without a dedicated command structure. Her training was for urban combat, for swift, decisive strikes in technologically advanced zones. This farm, with its wide-open spaces and ancient structures, was an alien battlefield to her. "His world is small, yet his spirit is vast. He speaks of the land as if it is a weapon." The thought was unexpected. She had seen him move through it, tend to it, understand its subtle shifts. Her own world was concrete and steel, nature tamed and controlled. Here, nature was wild, unpredictable, and potentially an ally. "Tell me about this land," Sharing commanded, her voice softening slightly, a hint of curiosity replacing her earlier frustration. "Show me its weaknesses, its strengths." Knox began to explain, drawing a rough map in the dirt with his finger. "The creek runs deep here, cutting off easy access from the south. The old-growth forest to the west is dense, hard to navigate. The north fields are open, but I can flood them if I reroute the irrigation system. The main road is exposed." As he spoke, Sharing knelt beside him, listening intently. She asked precise questions about line of sight, choke points, blind spots. Her tactical mind, honed by countless simulations and real-world engagements, began to translate his rustic knowledge into a viable defensive strategy. "They will expect a simple target," she murmured, a flicker of a smile touching her lips. "They will not expect an ambush by a farmer and a damaged warrior." They worked through the long afternoon, discussing and planning. Knox showed her how to set simple tripwires connected to old bells, how to create shallow pits disguised by loose hay, how to reinforce the barn doors with heavy timbers. Sharing, in turn, demonstrated how to analyze approach vectors, how to optimize cover, and how to create overlapping fields of fire with even the most basic projectiles. She even showed him how to modify some of his broken farming equipment into crude, but effective, barriers. "This data core," Knox said, wiping sweat from his brow as they secured a particularly stubborn plank. "You said it has mission logs. Can we use them?" Sharing nodded, carefully handling the glowing cube. "I can access them, but it will take time. My portable interface unit is damaged, but I might be able to jury-rig it with some of your power cells." He led her to a small shed filled with old batteries and wires. Sharing, with surprising dexterity, began to strip wires and connect them to her interface, a small, flat device that unfolded from her wrist. Knox watched, fascinated, as she coaxed life into the device. Her fingers danced across the holographic display projected from the interface. Lines of alien script scrolled rapidly. Her expression hardened. "These are not just mission logs," she stated, her voice tight with a sudden, chilling revelation. "This is more." Knox moved closer. "More how?" "A hidden directive," she whispered, her golden eyes wide with shock as she scrolled through a section of data. "My faction. They did not intend this system for simple reconnaissance. They planned a preemptive strike, a staging ground. They were going to exploit these resource-rich worlds themselves, just like Krona. A profound sense of betrayal washed over her. My purpose was a lie. My duty twisted. All her loyalty, her fierce dedication to her unit, her profound sense of justice, it had been built on a foundation of deceit. She had been a pawn, an instrument for the very exploitation she was trained to prevent. The weight of it crashed down, far heavier than any physical wound. Nox saw the shift in her, the sudden collapse of her warrior's resolve. He recognized the look of a person whose entire world had just crumbled. He knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her furred arm. "Sharing," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Purpose comes from within, not from a flawed command. It comes from what you choose to do now." She looked at him, her eyes clouded with an emotion he rarely saw, vulnerability. "But my unit, my people." "Your people chose to deceive you," Nox countered gently. "You can choose a different path. Your duty can be to what is right, not to what you were told." He squeezed her arm. "You've saved my life, Sharing. You fought for what you believed in. That's real." The warmth of his hand, the sincerity in his eyes, cut through her despair. He saw her, not just the soldier, not just the pawn. He saw the being beneath the armor, the one who valued justice and protection. His words, simple and direct, began to mend the fractured pieces of her loyalty, redirecting them towards a new, unexpected truth. She looked at the data core again, a new resolve hardening her gaze. This data, once a weapon for her faction, now held the key to exposing both their deceit and Krona's greed. "We will use it," she stated, her voice regaining its strength. "But not for them. For what is right." Nox nodded, a small knowing smile touching his lips. "Good. Now let's finish fortifying. They won't wait long." They returned to their work with renewed purpose, the barn now a makeshift command center, the fields a potential battleground. Sharing, her internal struggle still raw but her path now clear, integrated her advanced tactical knowledge with Nox's grounded ingenuity. She showed him how to rig a makeshift motion sensor from his broken transponder, how to use reflective surfaces to misdirect optical scanners, how to create sound decoys using old farm machinery. Nox, in turn, taught her about the subtle shifts of wind, the patterns of local wildlife, the hidden paths through the dense undergrowth. They moved with a synchronized efficiency, two disparate beings united by a common threat and a burgeoning, unspoken trust. The quiet solitude of the farm was gone, replaced by the tension of impending conflict, but in its place, a bond stronger than any military alliance was taking root. Sharing felt a new kind of strength, one not forged in fire and command, but in the quiet, resolute spirit of a farmer, and in the shared purpose they were now building together. A distant metallic whisper sliced through the pre-dawn quiet, barely audible above the chirping crickets. Sharing's ears swiveled, her orange fur bristling. "They are here," she murmured, her voice a low growl. Nox, already alert, gripped the worn stock of his rifle. "How many?" "One transport," she replied, her eyes scanning the horizon where the whisper had originated. "Landing beyond the ridge. Small unit, perhaps 3 or 4, based on engine signature. They believe this will be swift." "They'll be surprised," Nox said, a grim line to his mouth. He moved to the barn's reinforced door, peering through a narrow slit he had cut. The first hint of dawn painted the sky in muted grays, but shadows still clung to the fields. Sharing positioned herself near an improvised firing port, her modified combat gear humming softly. "Their drones will scout first. Optical and thermal. We wait." Minutes stretched, thick with tension. A faint whirring sound grew louder, approaching from the north. A small, beetle-like drone zipped past, its sensors sweeping the barn. Sharing remained motionless, a predator in waiting. "It's gone," Nox whispered. "No," Sharing countered. "It transmitted our location. They are coordinating. They will approach from multiple directions now. Standard Krona tactics." Suddenly, a series of quick, sharp impacts peppered the barn's outer wall. Energy bolts, not powerful enough to breach the reinforced plating but precise. They were testing the defenses, looking for weaknesses. "Stay low," Knox ordered, though Sharing was already flattened, observing. "They are probing our reaction," she said. "Do not engage until they commit." A shadow moved at the edge of the east field. Knox saw it, a figure in dark armor moving with unnatural speed. "East flank," he reported. "One unit advancing." Another figure appeared to the west, then a third directly towards the main barn entrance. Krona collective soldiers, heavily armed, their movements fluid and practiced. "Knox the tripwires on the south path," Sharing commanded. "Trigger them now. It will draw their attention." Knox scrambled to a small console he'd wired, pressing a button. A distant clang, then a burst of static from a hidden speaker, mimicking a faulty farm machine. The Western Krona soldier paused, turning his head. "Excellent," Sharing said, a hint of approval in her voice. "Their focus is divided." The soldier advancing towards the barn door raised his weapon, a sleek energy rifle, and fired a sustained blast. The reinforced metal groaned, sparking. "They're trying to breach the main entrance," Knox shouted over the din. Sharing activated a small, concealed emitter. A high-pitched whine filled the air, disorienting the soldier. He flinched, momentarily dropping his guard. Sharing seized the opportunity. She fired a precise burst from her wrist-mounted energy projector, aiming for the soldier's weapon. The rifle sparked, then went dark. The Krona operative recoiled, surprised. "One down, weapon disabled," Sharing reported, her voice calm. "He will retreat for repairs or backup." "They won't give up that easily," Knox said, reloading his rifle. "They'll send more." True to his word, another Krona soldier, larger and more heavily armored, emerged from the tree line, moving towards the now unarmed operative. But then, a series of quick thuds shook the ground. Explosive charges. "They're deploying breach charges," Sharing exclaimed. "South wall near the animal stalls." Knox's blood ran cold. The animal stalls were where he kept his remaining seed and some spare parts for his old tractor. More importantly, it was a weaker section of the barn. "I'll draw their fire," he said, moving towards the south wall, aiming his rifle. "No," Sharing said, her voice sharp. "You will be exposed. We need to create a distraction, not a target. The noise emitters we placed near the old water tank. Activate them." Knox quickly complied. A cacophony of screeching metal and simulated animal cries erupted from the fields, drawing the attention of the Krona soldiers. While they glanced towards the noise, Sharing moved with incredible speed, a blur of orange fur and gleaming armor. She burst through a small, pre-prepared opening in the south wall, surprising the Krona team attempting to set their charges. She engaged them in a whirlwind of close-quarters combat. Her movements were fluid, powerful, a dance of controlled violence. One soldier was disarmed with a swift, calculated strike to the wrist. Another was slammed against the wall, his helmet cracking. Sharing fought with a primal fury, her every motion aimed at neutralizing the threat to their stronghold, to Knox. Knox watched, awestruck, as she moved. This was not the injured creature he had found, nor the frustrated mechanic. This was a warrior, a force of nature, protecting her chosen ground. She returned moments later, breathless but victorious, dragging 2 disabled Krona rifles. "They will not attempt that breach again," she stated, her chest heaving. "But they are adapting. They will try to find a way to disable our systems next." "They're learning our tricks," Knox acknowledged, a bead of sweat tracing his temple. "How long can we keep this up?" "Long enough," Sharing replied, though her eyes held a flicker of concern. "They have superior numbers and resources. We have our ingenuity and this data. We must use it, not just to defend but to end this." The fighting had taken a toll. Their makeshift defenses were holding, but just barely. The barn was scarred, pockmarked with energy scorches. Their ammunition was running low, and Sharing's power cells were depleting faster than anticipated. The Krona forces had retreated again, but it was a tactical withdrawal, not a full retreat. They would be back, stronger, smarter. Knox looked at Sharing, her face smudged with dust, her fur slightly singed. He saw the fierce determination in her eyes, but also a growing weariness. "We can't just keep reacting," he said, his voice firm. "You said they want the data. We have to use it against them before they take it from us." Sharing nodded, a new resolve hardening her gaze. The initial rush of adrenaline from defending their ground was fading, replaced by a cold, strategic clarity. "You are right. We cannot merely survive this. We must win it." She looked at the small, glowing data core she still carried. It was their last, best weapon. "We need a plan, Knox. A plan to expose them and truly stop them." The immediate threat was repelled, but the battle was far from over. A deeper resolve settled between them, a silent agreement to shift from defense to a daring offensive. Sharing felt a profound sense of purpose, not just in protecting Knox, but in using the truth to fight for a justice that transcended factions and worlds. The warmth of their shared determination was a beacon in the gathering storm. Knox looked at Sharing, her gaze fixed on the glowing data core. "How do we expose them?" he asked, the question cutting through the silence of the battered barn. "We can't just send a message from here. They'd intercept it instantly." "Precisely," Sharing confirmed, her brow furrowed. "Their jamming capabilities are extensive. A simple transmission is futile. We need a relay, a powerful one, beyond their immediate sphere of influence. Or we need to upload directly to a major interstellar network node." "And where would we find one of those?" Knox gestured vaguely to the night sky, a stark reminder of their isolation. "Not on your world," she admitted, a hint of frustration in her voice, "but perhaps a passing vessel, or an orbital outpost. Both are impossible to reach from our current position without a ship." Knox walked to his workbench, picking up a battered wrench. "So we're stuck. We have the truth, but no way to tell it." "Not stuck," Sharing countered, her eyes scanning the barn's interior. "Limited. We must adapt our strategy. The Krona Collective will consolidate their forces. Their next assault will be overwhelming. We cannot withstand it indefinitely." "Then we have to make them come to us, but on our terms," Knox stated, a glint in his eye. "We draw them out. Make them think they have an advantage, then hit them where they don't expect it." Sharing turned, her attention sharp. "Explain. Your farm tricks have proven surprisingly effective." Knox began to sketch in the dust on the workbench with his finger. "My fields. They're open, but I know every dip, every rise, every patch of soft ground. We can funnel them, create choke points." He paused, "but we still need a way to broadcast. If we lure them into a trap, we need a way to make that trap serve a larger purpose, not just to repel them but to expose them." "The data core contains the coordinates of a hidden Krona relay station," Sharing revealed, tapping the small device. "It's a high-gain antenna array, disguised as an asteroid mining operation in a nearby system, Kalen 3. If we could reach it, we could hijack their own broadcast infrastructure." Knox whistled softly. "Hijack their broadcast? That's ambitious. And how do we get there? We don't have a ship." "The Krona transport," Sharing said, looking towards the ridge where their dropship had landed. "It's damaged, but possibly salvageable for short-range flight. If we can disable their ground forces, we might be able to secure it." A cold calculation settled over Knox. "So the plan is, lure them, defeat them, steal their ride, and then fly it to another system to broadcast their crimes using their own equipment." "A simplified summary, yes," Sharing confirmed, a faint smile touching her lips. "It requires extreme precision and perfect timing, and it means confronting their entire ground force, head-on, in a calculated engagement." Knox nodded slowly. "We've done harder things. Besides, what choice do we have?" He felt a surge of adrenaline, not from fear but from the clear path ahead. The risk was immense, but the potential reward, justice, was worth it. They spent the next few hours meticulously planning. Knox outlined the terrain features of his largest field, pointing out natural depressions, old irrigation ditches, and areas where the soil was too soft for heavy vehicles. Sharing overlaid his knowledge with tactical considerations, identifying kill zones and approach vectors. We need a beacon, Sharing concluded, tracing a line on the dusty bench. Something to draw them to a specific point, then detonate a localized EMP burst to disable their comms and disrupt their shields temporarily. It would give us a critical window. EMP, Knox mused. That sounds like something from your ship. Anything left that could be repurposed. Sharing considered, then went to a pile of salvaged components from her crashed vessel. She pulled out a small, spherical device, no larger than her fist. This is a proximity mine from my auxiliary gear. It can be modified. Instead of a kinetic blast, we can overload its energy core to emit a focused electromagnetic pulse. She looked at Knox. Can you rig a timer? A remote trigger, perhaps? Knox examined the alien device, his eyes alight with curiosity. A timer, sure. A remote trigger if I can tap into its frequency. It'll take some doing, but it's possible. He thought about the old radio components in his workshop. A sudden, faint flicker on their improvised perimeter scanner caught Sharing's attention. Movement, she stated, her voice low. Multiple signatures beyond the ridge. They are regrouping. Knox clenched his jaw. They didn't waste any time. We must act now, Sharing urged, her eyes gleaming with renewed urgency. The element of surprise is our only advantage. If they come in full force again, our defenses will crumble. All right, Knox said, grabbing a heavy-duty wire cutter. You work on that EMP device. I'll get the tractor ready. It's slow, but it's heavy and it can move a lot of earth quickly. We'll dig in. Hours passed in a flurry of activity. Sharing, with surprising dexterity, rewired the proximity mine, bypassing its original detonation sequence for an EMP discharge. Knox, meanwhile, modified his old tractor, attaching a reinforced plow blade and adding makeshift plating from salvaged farm machinery. He created a small, mobile bunker, capable of providing cover and acting as a diversion. As the first hint of dawn colored the sky, painting the horizon in shades of purple and orange, they stood on the edge of the largest field. The air was cool, crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant, alien technology. The Krona forces will approach through that northern gully, Sharing pointed, her voice calm despite the impending conflict. My calculations indicate their primary objective will be to secure the crash site and then the barn. We intercept them here in the open. Knox nodded, surveying the field. He had spent his life cultivating this land. Now he would use it as a battlefield. The tractor will draw their fire. You get the EMP charge into position. And then we move on their transport, Sharing finished, her gaze unwavering. This is it, Knox, the turning point. Knox felt a deep sense of calm settle over him. He was a farmer, not a soldier, but standing beside Sharing, he felt capable of anything. He looked at her, her fierce eyes reflecting the rising sun, and a warmth spread through him, a quiet certainty that together they could face any storm. Their hands brushed as he passed her a last tool, a simple gesture, yet it carried the weight of their shared purpose, a silent promise to fight for a future they were building together. The dawn promised a battle, but also a chance at something truly extraordinary. A distant rumble grew into a roar, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Over the northern ridge, 3 Krona collective transports descended, dark shapes against the brightening sky. They were smaller than Sharing had anticipated, sleek and predatory, dropping soldiers like seeds onto the fields beyond the gully. They are here, Sharing stated, her voice a low growl. Knox, your signal. Knox climbed onto his tractor, the modified plow blade gleaming dully in the dawn. He revved the engine, the diesel roar a defiant challenge to the alien craft. All right, Sharing, time for a little farm work. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white but his gaze steady. He steered the tractor directly into the open field, a lumbering target. Energy bolts immediately streaked past, slamming into the earth around him, kicking up plumes of soil. The tractor shuddered, but the makeshift plating held. Nox swerved, making himself a difficult target, drawing the Krona soldiers' attention. He saw their formations break, some turning to engage him, others still advancing towards the barn. Distraction successful, Shireen murmured, already moving. She melted into the cover of the tall crops, her orange fur blending with the stalks in the low light. Her comms were silent, a calculated risk. She needed absolute focus. Her goal was the largest transport, the one that had landed closest to the gully. It would be their escape. Nox continued his erratic path, a one-man whirlwind of dust and noise. A bolt seared past his ear, singeing his hair. He gritted his teeth, remembering Shireen's training: keep moving, predict their aim. He felt the impact of smaller arms' fire peppering the rear plating, a rhythmic drumming against the metal. The tractor, his steadfast companion, bore the brunt of the assault. Shireen moved like a phantom, her enhanced senses picking up the subtle clicks of Krona boots, the hum of their weapons. She saw two soldiers detaching from their squad, attempting to flank Nox. Her priorities shifted. She could not let them disable his diversion. She burst from the cover of the crops, a blur of motion. The two Krona soldiers, their attention fixed on the tractor, had no time to react. Shireen moved with brutal efficiency, disarming the first with a swift strike, then disabling the second before either could raise an alarm. She used their own communication devices to send a burst of static, momentarily jamming their local frequencies. It would buy her precious seconds. Nox flanking eliminated, she transmitted, her voice tight. Maintain diversion. I am proceeding to the transport. Nox heard her, a surge of relief mixed with renewed determination. Understood, he responded, swerving hard to avoid a concentrated energy burst that would have crippled the tractor. He could see Shireen, a fleeting shadow, nearing the distant transport. He needed to keep the pressure on. He turned the tractor, intentionally cutting off a path for a group of Krona soldiers, forcing them to scatter and lose formation. Shireen reached the edge of the transport's landing zone. Two Krona guards stood at the ramp, their weapons scanning the field. She observed their patrol patterns, the rhythm of their vigilance. The EMP device, now armed and ready, felt heavy in her hand. This was the moment. The plan relied on precision. She moved with a hunter's patience, circling the perimeter, looking for the optimal point of entry. One guard turned his back to survey the gully. Shireen seized the opportunity, moving silently, swiftly. She struck, a rapid series of movements that left the guard unconscious before he could utter a sound. The second guard, alerted by a faint rustle, spun around. Shireen was already on him, a blur of orange and combat gear. He fell, equally silenced. She climbed the transport ramp, her senses alert for any internal alarms. The interior was quiet, dimly lit. She located the main power conduit, a thick bundle of cables running along the ceiling. Attaching the EMP device required a moment of focus, her paws surprisingly delicate as she secured the modified proximity mine. Device deployed, Shireen whispered into her comm unit, a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Activating. Nox, still maneuvering the tractor through a hail of energy fire, felt a tremor run through the ground. A brilliant, silent flash erupted from the direction of the transport, an invisible wave washing over the field. For a split second, all sound ceased. Then, a cacophony of alarms blared from the Krona soldiers' disabled equipment. Their weapons sputtered, their comms went dead. The transport, still in the air, began to pitch violently, their engines sputtering, before crashing clumsily into the distant gully. Confusion erupted among the Krona ground forces. Their advanced technology, their advantage, had vanished. They stood disoriented, their energy weapons inert, their comms silent, their vision obscured by failing optical systems. Now Nox, Shireen's voice crackled through his comm, clear and urgent. To the transport, we move. Nox grinned, a wild, exhilarated expression. He spun the tractor, no longer a diversion but a battering ram, heading straight for the cluster of disoriented Krona soldiers closest to the captured transport. He plowed through their ranks, scattering them, his heavy machinery now an instrument of chaos, not just defense. He brought the tractor to a halt beside the transport ramp, killing the engine. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the distant cries of the krona and the chirping of birds beginning their morning song. Sharon stood at the top of the ramp, her eyes glowing with fierce satisfaction. "We did it," Knox said, climbing down from the tractor, his legs feeling surprisingly steady. He looked at the disabled enemy, then at the sleek alien transport, a prize they had won against impossible odds. Sharon descended the ramp, her gaze meeting his. "This was just the beginning, Knox," she said, a hint of something softer in her voice. She reached out, her furred hand brushing his arm, but it was a good beginning. Together. The warmth of her touch, the quiet strength in her eyes, promised more than just further battles. It promised a future, forged in the heat of this unlikely alliance. Sharon extended a hand to Knox. "Come." He climbed the ramp, the metallic tang of the transport's interior distinct from the familiar scent of his barn. Sharon moved with purpose towards the cockpit, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar console. Knox followed, observing the smooth, dark surfaces and glowing symbols. The controls were alien, a dizzying array of lights and panels. "This is different from my transport," Sharon stated, her brow furrowed. "The EMP scrambled some universal protocols. I can't get a full system readout." Knox stepped closer, his gaze falling on a large, central display. "It's like a tractor but more complicated. What's the main power conduit?" Sharon pointed to a cluster of smaller, unlit panels. "These usually indicate power flow, but they are dark." Knox knelt, his calloused fingers tracing the smooth lines of the floor where power conduits might run. He noticed a faint seam near a heavy access plate. Every machine has a primary power input. Even if the EMP hit, the source would still be there, just not flowing. He pulled at the plate. It resisted. "Help me with this." Together they leveraged the plate, revealing a tangle of unfamiliar wiring and a large, cylindrical power cell. A faint, acrid smell emanated from it. "Overload," Sharon muttered. "The EMP must have surged the primary circuit." "Then we need to reroute," Knox said, already looking for an alternative. He spotted a smaller, auxiliary port. "Does this one connect to anything?" Sharon examined it. "Backup power. It might provide enough to boot the navigation and basic flight systems, but not full thrust." "Enough to get us moving," Knox decided. He found a loose length of thick cable, severed from one of the disabled krona vehicles outside. With surprising dexterity, he stripped the insulation with a knife from his belt. "We just need to bridge the connection, like starting an old engine with a jump cable." Sharon watched, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. His resourcefulness was a stark contrast to her reliance on advanced diagnostics. This could work. Within minutes, Knox had jury-rigged a connection, bypassing the overloaded primary cell. A soft hum resonated through the deck plates. The cockpit panels flickered to life, bathing the interior in a cool, blue light. "You are surprisingly adaptable, Farmer," Sharon said, taking the pilot's seat. She began to input commands, her fingers flying across the glowing console. "The navigation is responding. Coordinates for the relay station are locked." Knox settled into the co-pilot's chair, feeling the subtle vibrations of the ship systems. Always had to adapt. Farm life teaches you to fix things with what you've got. He looked out the viewport at his fields, a pang of longing mixing with the thrill of the unknown. Leaving the farm is strange. "A new purpose awaits," Sharon replied, her gaze fixed on the rising horizon. "To expose the krona. To ensure no one else suffers their exploitation." She powered up the engines. The transport lifted silently, gracefully, leaving a faint ripple in the air. The farm shrunk below them, a familiar patch of green becoming a distant memory. They broke atmosphere, the stars blooming around them in a sudden, breathtaking expanse. Knox felt a sense of awe, a profound shift in perspective. His world, once so vast, was now a tiny sphere among countless others. "This is incredible," Knox breathed, unable to tear his eyes from the display. Sharing glanced at him, a rare, soft smile touching her lips. "The galaxy is vast, Knox. We are merely 2 specks in its current." "But 2 specks with a mission," he countered. "The data, what exactly will it show?" "Everything," she confirmed, her voice hardening. "Krona's planned resource strip mining of undeveloped systems, their coercive tactics, also the hidden directives from my own faction, outlining their intent to seize the same systems. It will shatter both their public images." Their journey was quiet for a time, a shared contemplation of the immense task ahead. The Krona relay station, nestled in the uninhabited sector of a gas giant called Xiphos, was their target. Days passed in the quiet hum of the transport. They rationed their limited supplies, sharing stories of their lives. Knox described the changing seasons, the stubbornness of his old tractor, the satisfaction of a good harvest. Sharing recounted tales of training, the camaraderie of her unit, the strict but orderly life on Vandros. The intimacy of shared space and shared purpose wove a new bond between them. "This data will change everything for you, too," Knox observed one cycle. "Your people will know." Sharing nodded slowly. "They will. My loyalty was to a cause, not an organization. This is the true cause now." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "With you, Knox, I understand what true purpose means. It is not given, it is chosen." Suddenly an alarm blared. A proximity warning flashed on the console. "Krona Patrol," Sharing growled, her hand flying to the controls. "2 cruisers on an intercept course. They must have detected our power signature." "Can we outrun them?" Knox asked, his mind already assessing the situation, drawing on instinct forged in desperate situations on his farm. "Not with auxiliary power," Sharing replied, her fingers dancing across the console. "But we can use the gas giant's interference. We'll dive into the atmosphere of Xiphos. They won't follow us in. Too risky for their larger ships." "A storm chase then," Knox said, a wry grin on his face, "just like home." Sharing executed a sharp dive. The stars blurred into streaks as they plunged towards the swirling, turbulent surface of Xiphos. The transport shuddered, straining against the atmospheric pressure. The gas giant's immense storms, visible now as colossal, roiling currents of gas, filled the viewport. The Krona cruisers appeared as distant, hesitant specks, refusing to follow their descent. "They won't risk it," Sharing confirmed, guiding the transport deeper into the gaseous maelstrom. "We are safe from immediate pursuit." The ship vibrated violently, buffeted by the colossal winds. Knox gripped his armrests, but his gaze remained steady. He saw the beauty in the chaos, the raw power of a natural force. Sharing, her face illuminated by the console, navigated with precision, weaving through the tempestuous currents. "The relay station is still within range, even through this," Sharing announced, pointing to a faint signal on the auxiliary screen. "But we will need to emerge strategically. This storm could tear us apart." Their alliance, forged in the dust of his farm, was now tested in the heart of an alien storm. The warmth of their shared resolve, of facing the unknown together, filled the small cockpit. Their destination, the Krona relay station, loomed in the depths of Xiphos, a new challenge awaiting them in the turbulent silence. The transport screamed a protest as it plunged deeper, the atmospheric currents of Xiphos tearing at its hull. Knox gripped the console, watching immense, swirling vortexes of gas fill the viewport, a dizzying maelstrom of color and force. The ship groaned, its frame vibrating with violent intensity. "Auxiliary power is holding," Sharing announced, her voice tight with concentration. Her orange fur bristled slightly, her eyes, usually so fierce, narrowed in a display of pure focus. She wrestled the controls, micro-adjustments guiding them through turbulent channels. "But this is unlike any atmospheric dive I've ever made. The density changes are extreme." Like flying through a collapsing mountain range, Knox observed, his gaze tracing the chaotic energy patterns on a secondary screen. Any weak points we should worry about? Sherry nodded, not taking her eyes from the viewport. The forward stabilizers are under immense strain. If we lose one, we could tumble. She executed a sudden, sharp maneuver, avoiding a colossal updraft that would have ripped a wing off. My people train for planetary assaults, not blind dives into unmapped gas giants. A flicker of something, perhaps admiration, crossed her features as she glanced at Knox. You seem remarkably calm. Used to dealing with things outside my control, Knox replied, a faint smile touching his lips. Whether crop blights, alien invaders, you learn to ride the storm. He reached out, his hand instinctively resting on a loose panel near a power conduit. The metal was hot. Should I try to reinforce this wiring? It's sparking a little. Do it, Sharing commanded, her tone brusque but trusting. Any structural integrity you can maintain will help. Knox quickly worked, his calloused fingers surprisingly agile. He used a multi-tool from his pack, a simple device he'd grabbed from the farm, to secure the panel and tighten the connections. The sparking subsided. Better, he confirmed, leaning back. It's not pretty, but it'll hold. A faint, almost imperceptible signal flickered on Sharing's primary scanner. She frowned, tapping the screen. That's not the relay station. It's too deep and the energy signature is erratic, unidentified. Could it be Krona? Knox asked, his mind immediately sifting through possibilities. Unlikely, Sharing mused. Their ships are large, not designed for deep atmospheric penetration, not this deep. And the signature isn't their standard comms array. She manipulated the controls, zooming in on the anomaly. It was faint, barely discernible against the background noise of the gas giant's own electromagnetic chaos. It's a structure, or what's left of one. Ancient, perhaps, or something natural that mimics a structure. Knox leaned closer, intrigued. A shelter. Perhaps, Sharing said, a new glint in her eyes, or a trap. But if it's stable, it could offer a momentary respite from these currents. A place to recalibrate, to pinpoint the relay station's exact position without being torn apart. Her internal thought, this human, he sees opportunity in chaos, not just peril, a useful trait for a warrior. The transport continued its descent, buffeted relentlessly. The stress of the environment was palpable. Sharing's shoulders were tense, her focus unwavering. Knox felt a surge of warmth, a quiet respect for her tenacity. She was a warrior through and through, but not a reckless one. She weighed risks, calculated, adapted. The relay station's signal is still present, Sharing pointed out, indicating a small, persistent blip on another display. But we're still moving further away from it, geographically, by diving this deep. The structure's coordinates are almost directly below us now. We can't fly blind forever, Knox stated. If this structure offers a moment's peace, it might be worth the risk. We need to be able to plan our approach to that relay station, not just stumble into it. Sharing met his gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. His logic was sound. Their alliance, forged in the dust of his farm, had evolved into a seamless partnership in the void. He trusted her judgment with the ship, and she trusted his calm assessment of the unknown. Very well, Sharing decided, her fingers flying across the console. We'll adjust course. Target the anomaly. It's a calculated risk, but staying in these upper currents is unsustainable. This storm could tear us apart before we ever reach our objective. She pulled back on the controls, the transport shuddering as it shifted its trajectory, angling towards the faint, mysterious signal deep within the gas giant. The massive winds continued to howl around them, but a new, focused determination filled the small cockpit, a shared resolve against the vast, turbulent silence of Xiphos. The transport plunged, the roar of Xiphos' storms a deafening assault. Alarms shrieked, protesting the extreme atmospheric pressure. Sharing wrestled the controls, her brow furrowed in fierce concentration. Knox braced himself, watching the external monitors flicker with swirling, chaotic energy. Then, with a final, violent lurch, the ship broke through. Silence. The transport floated in a vast, ethereal cavern, a pocket of absolute calm within the gas giant. Below them, stretching into the indigo depths, lay an impossibly ancient structure. It was not a natural formation. Colossal, geometric spires of obsidian-like material rose from a foundation lost to the gas, piercing through layers of luminescent clouds. Faint, intricate patterns glowed along its surfaces, like dormant circuitry waiting for a spark. Incredible, Knox breathed, his voice hushed. It's a city or a station. Sherin's eyes, usually sharp with tactical assessment, held a rare wonder. A monument. No current civilization possesses this architectural scale, this material composition. It predates known interstellar travel, perhaps even the Great Migrations. She guided the transport slowly, cautiously, towards a massive, recessed bay in one of the spires. It glowed with a faint, inviting blue light. "Is it safe to go in?" Knox asked. "The air readings are stable within the bay," Sherin replied, her fingers dancing across the console, verifying environmental data. "And the energy signature is passive. No active defenses, no hostile emanations." Her internal thought, "This discovery changes everything. It is not just a refuge, it is a relic." The transport drifted into the bay, a cavernous space large enough to swallow multiple vessels. The blue light intensified, revealing intricate carvings on the walls, depicting celestial maps and unknown symbols. Once inside, automatic systems engaged, sealing the bay behind them with a low thrum. Gravity stabilizers activated, gently settling the transport onto a landing platform. The ship's internal lights flickered, adjusting to the sudden absence of external chaos. Knox unstrapped himself, feeling the familiar pull of artificial gravity. "We made it." "For now," Sherin said, but her tone lacked its usual edge of caution. She powered down the engines, the ship settling into a deep quiet. This structure, it's called the Silent Citadel, according to the faint data burst it emitted when we entered. An ancient way station, perhaps, a relic from a time before the factions. Knox walked over to a view screen, peering out at the vastness of the bay. "What do you think it was for?" "Observation, research, or a sanctuary," Sherin speculated. "The energy readings are immense, yet dormant. It could power a small fleet if reactivated. But more importantly, it offers what we desperately need, a stable platform for deep space diagnostics." "So we can finally pinpoint that relay station," Knox realized, a new surge of determination in his voice. "Precisely," Sherin confirmed, "and perhaps even amplify our broadcast. Our transport's comms array is functional, but its range is limited by our jury-rigged power supply. This citadel could provide the boost we need to ensure our message reaches far beyond the Krona's jamming." He turned, meeting her gaze. "You think it's possible that this old place could help us bring down both factions?" "It's an unknown variable, a wild card," Sherin admitted, "but it is our best hope. The data core still holds the truth. If we can find a way to project it across multiple systems, the impact would be undeniable." Her internal thought, "Knox's hope is a strange, potent force. It fuels my own resolve against all logic." They spent the next few hours running diagnostics from the cockpit, confirming the Citadel's passive nature and the incredible stability it offered. Sherin began rerouting the transport's primary systems, attempting to interface with the Citadel's dormant power grid. Knox, ever practical, checked their remaining supplies, finding a small cache of nutrient paste and water rations. "We won't starve, at least," he commented, handing her a tube. Sherin accepted it, her gaze still fixed on the intricate console. "I detect faint residual energy signatures throughout the Citadel. It's not entirely dead. There might be operational terminals, even data archives." "So a library of the ancients," Knox mused, "could be helpful or dangerous." "Both are possibilities," she conceded, "but we are not entirely blind. The Citadel appears to have a central control nexus, deep within its core. If we can access it, we might find the answers we need. Their eyes met, a shared understanding passing between them. The perilous journey through Xiphos had deepened their bond, turning a forced alliance into a genuine partnership. Nox's grounded resilience complemented Sharing's strategic brilliance. He saw beyond her warrior exterior, recognizing the profound sense of justice that drove her. She, in turn, marveled at his quiet strength, his unwavering moral compass. "Ready to explore an ancient mystery, farmer?" Sharing asked, a hint of challenge in her voice but a genuine warmth in her eyes. Nox offered a small, confident smile. "As ready as I'll ever be, warrior. Lead the way." His internal thought, "This mission, this life, it's not what I expected." But with her, even the unknown feels like a path worth taking. They had found temporary sanctuary, a place to breathe and plan, but also a new layer of intrigue, a stepping stone on their path to galactic truth. The silent citadel awaited their touch, promising both answers and perhaps new perils. Nox secured the last of their meager supplies, packing them into a worn satchel. Sharing, meanwhile, checked the energy readings from her modified combat gear, its internal systems humming softly. The air within the transport bay was still, an unnatural quiet that felt heavier than the vacuum of space. "The internal atmosphere is stable," Sharing reported, her voice resonating with an almost reverent tone. "And the environmental controls are still functional, centuries later." "Amazing," Nox murmured, adjusting the strap of his satchel. "Like finding a perfectly preserved barn after 1,000 years." Sharing offered a rare, small smile. "A very large barn, farmer." She gestured towards the massive entrance to the citadel's interior, a colossal archway that seemed carved from starlight and shadow. "The central nexus should be beyond this point. We will proceed with caution." They disembarked, their boots echoing softly on the polished obsidian-like floor. The scale of the citadel was overwhelming. Corridors stretched into the distance, illuminated by a faint, ambient glow emanating from the walls themselves. It felt less like a structure and more like a carefully sculpted void. "No signs of recent activity," Sharing observed, her senses extended, scanning for any anomalies. "No residual energy signatures beyond the citadel's own passive fields." Nox ran a hand over a smooth, cool surface. "Who built this place? And why leave it dormant for so long?" "Questions we must answer," Sharing replied, already moving forward. "Our mission remains. This facility offers the best chance to broadcast the data. We must find its core systems." They navigated a labyrinth of passages, each one identical yet subtly different, designed with an alien precision that spoke of an ancient, advanced civilization. The silence was profound, broken only by their footsteps and the occasional whir of Sharing's internal sensors. After what felt like hours, they reached a vast, circular chamber. In its center, a single glowing console stood like an altar. Intricate symbols, unlike any Sharing had ever encountered, pulsed with a soft blue light. A terminal, Sharing breathed, approaching it slowly. Her fingers hovered over the controls, hesitant. But the interface is completely alien, no known galactic standard. Nox stepped closer, examining the symbols. "Looks like some kind of circuit diagram almost. See these lines? They connect to each other like a path." He pointed to a pattern on the console. "Maybe it's not about pressing buttons, but about completing a sequence." Sharing looked at him, surprised. "A sequence? How would you determine that?" "Well, if you're trying to power something up, you usually follow the flow," Nox explained, tapping a specific symbol. "Start here, maybe. It looks like the main input." Sharing followed his lead, her warrior's precision merging with his farmer's intuition. She touched the symbol Nox indicated. A faint ripple of energy passed through the console. Other symbols brightened, offering new pathways. They worked together, a silent dance of alien intellect and human logic. Nox recognized patterns, suggesting connections. Sharing, with her vast knowledge of energy systems, interpreted the subtle feedback from the console. Slowly, methodically, they activated sections of the terminal. "It's responding," Sharing whispered, a hint of awe in her voice. "We are awakening it." The central console flared, projecting a three-dimensional star map into the air above it. It was incredibly detailed, showing not just star systems but intricate energy conduits connecting them, like a cosmic web. One particular system glowed brighter than the rest: Xiphos. "It's a galactic relay network," Sharing realized, her eyes wide with understanding. "This citadel isn't just a way station. It's a hub for interstellar communication." Knox stared at the glowing map. "And it's connected to everything. If we can broadcast from here, it would reach every corner of the galaxy," Sharing finished, her gaze meeting his. A new determination hardened her features. "This is more powerful than we imagined. Our data will not just expose them. It will shatter their influence entirely." Knox felt a surge of hope. This silent, ancient place held the key to their mission. He looked at Sharing, her orange fur illuminated by the star map, her fierce intellect now focused on a goal that transcended her past. His internal thought: "We are two tiny specks in this immense place, but together we are making a difference." The path ahead was still uncertain, but the way station had revealed its true purpose, offering them a chance to truly change the galaxy. "This is a galactic relay network," Sharing repeated, her voice hushed. "A true hub." She traced a glowing line on the projected star map, connecting Xiphos to distant, unnamed systems. "My faction's comms could only reach across a few sectors. The Krona Collective's influence was limited to their occupied territories. But this touches everything." Knox felt the weight of her words. From his quiet farm to a hijacked alien transport to this ancient, silent citadel hidden within a gas giant. The scale of their mission had expanded beyond anything he could have imagined. "So, if we broadcast from here," he began, "our message won't just hit their local networks. It will saturate every known frequency," Sharing confirmed, her eyes bright with a fierce resolve. "No one will be able to ignore it or filter it. It will be undeniable truth, delivered to every sentient species with a receiver." "What would we say?" Knox asked, stepping closer to the holographic display. "How do we make them listen, truly listen, to a message from two strangers?" Sharing turned to him, her gaze intense. "We speak their language, but with a different voice. We show them the data. The Krona Collective's exploitation of resource-rich systems. The deceit of my own faction, planning to usurp those same systems under the guise of reconnaissance. The raw, unvarnished truth of their greed and manipulation." "It needs to be more than just data," Knox mused, tapping his finger thoughtfully on the console's edge. "It needs to tell a story. Not just what they did, but why it matters. What it means for the common people, for the systems they exploit." He thought of his farm, his simple life, and how easily it could have been crushed by such forces. It needs to be about freedom, about choice, about the right to live without fear of being a pawn. Sharing nodded slowly. "A universal appeal, something that resonates beyond faction lines." She looked at the data core still secured to her hip. "The core holds the raw logs, the encrypted directives. We can project them, translate them, layer them with a narrative, your narrative." Knox felt a jolt of surprise. "My narrative?" "You are the outsider," she explained, "the observer. You see the corruption for what it is, without the bias of a soldier or a politician. Your perspective will give it weight, authenticity." She began manipulating the console, pulling up schematics of the Citadel's broadcast array. "We need to route the data core through the main processing conduits. It will be a direct upload, bypassing any internal filters." Knox watched her nimble fingers move across the alien interface. "Is it safe to just plug it in?" "This citadel is dormant, a relic. Its primary function was communication, not security against its own data. If we awaken it fully, it will simply do what it was built to do," Sharing replied, though a slight furrow appeared between her brows. The challenge will be the integration. My core's architecture is vastly different from this ancient system. She removed the data core from her combat harness, holding the small, metallic cube in her palm. It pulsed faintly, a testament to the volatile information it contained. We need to create a bridge. She indicated a specific port on the console, one that glowed with a faint, inviting blue light. This is a direct data conduit, but it requires a precise energy signature to open. Knox leaned in, examining the port. It looked like nothing he had ever seen, yet he sensed a familiar logic in its design, an elegance in its function. What kind of signature? A harmonic resonance, Sharing answered, her gaze fixed on the port. A specific frequency that aligns with the Citadel's core power. Without it, the port will remain locked, or worse, reject the core entirely. They spent the next several hours in intense collaboration. Sharing, drawing upon her deep understanding of energy systems, worked to identify the precise frequency. She manipulated sub-panels, her ears twitching as she listened for subtle shifts in the console's low thrum. Knox, with his farmer's knack for observation and problem-solving, pointed out minute fluctuations in the energy readings, drawing her attention to patterns she might have overlooked. There, Knox said, pointing to a rapidly pulsing indicator. That spike. It's consistent, almost a rhythm. Sharing focused, her eyes narrowing. She adjusted a dial, her movements precise. A low, resonant hum began to emanate from the console, growing steadily in intensity. The blue light of the port brightened, then solidified, becoming a stable, inviting glow. You found it, Sharing breathed, a genuine smile gracing her features. Your intuition is remarkable, Knox. Knox felt a warmth spread through him at her praise, just paying attention to the details. With the port open, Sharing carefully inserted her data core. A ripple of emerald light spread from the connection point, flowing through the console and into the vast, ancient network of the Citadel. The star map above them pulsed, its intricate lines glowing brighter, as if drinking in the new information. It's integrating, Sharing whispered, her voice filled with triumph. The data is flowing. Knox watched in awe as symbols and scripts, alien and complex, began to scroll across the edges of the star map. It was like watching the galaxy awaken to a new understanding. His internal thought, this is it. This is where we change everything. As the data streamed, a new, unforeseen layer of information began to populate the star map. Not just the real-time movements of ships or known planetary systems, but faint, almost ghostly projections of past events. Ancient conflicts, hidden agendas, forgotten treaties, a vast galactic history began to overlay the current map. What is this? Knox asked, pointing to a cluster of shimmering, ethereal images depicting an old battle. Sharing stared, her orange fur bristling slightly. It's not just a communication hub. The Citadel, it's also an archive, a repository of galactic memory. It's pulling in historical data, cross-referencing it with my core's information. Her eyes widened with a sudden, profound realization. The Krona Collective's current actions, my faction's deception, they are not isolated incidents. They are part of a much larger, ancient pattern of manipulation. The star map flared, projecting a new, deep-seated timeline of corruption, revealing the systemic nature of the power struggles that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. It was a truth far grander and more devastating than they had ever imagined. This changes everything, Sharing said, her voice barely audible. Our broadcast won't just expose two factions. It will expose the very roots of their tyranny. It will be a reckoning for the entire galaxy. She looked at Knox, her expression resolute. Are you ready, Knox, to unleash a truth that could reshape civilizations? Yes, Knox replied, his voice firm, unwavering. He met Sharing's intense gaze. Let's reshape them. Sharing nodded, a fierce determination settling on her features. She turned back to the console, her fingers flying across the ancient interface. The Citadel pulsed with renewed energy, its intricate conduits lighting up like dormant arteries suddenly filled with lifeblood. The star map above them exploded with color, no longer just a projection, but a dynamic, living display of galactic consciousness. Initiating broadcast protocols, Sharing announced, her voice strained with effort. The core data is synchronizing with the historical archives. It will be a full-spectrum transmission, unfiltered, uncensored. A low thrum vibrated through the floor beneath their feet, a sound felt more than heard. On the star map, shimmering waves of light radiated outwards from the Xiphos system, spreading across the projected galaxy. Each wave represented a surge of data, a torrent of truth washing over countless worlds. Ancient conflicts, hidden manipulations, the systemic patterns of tyranny and deceit, all laid bare for every sentient being to witness. Knox watched, mesmerized. He saw flashes of Krona collective cruisers, then images of Sharing's own faction leaders meeting in secret, their pronouncements of peace juxtaposed with their true, predatory intentions. The Citadel was not just sending a message. It was tearing down veils, exposing layers of deception built over millennia. His internal thought, this is bigger than any farm, any planet. This is freedom. It's reaching them, Sharing whispered, her eyes fixed on the expanding waves. Every major system, every hidden outpost, the truth is out. A profound silence descended as the last wave dissipated. The star map settled, still vibrant, but now bearing the indelible mark of what had just occurred. The galaxy would never be the same. What happens now? Knox asked, the question heavy with the weight of their actions. Sharing turned to him, her expression a mix of exhaustion and triumph. Now the galaxy begins its reckoning. The factions will be in chaos. Their power structures will crumble as their lies are revealed. There will be war, perhaps, but it will be a war for true liberation, not for hidden agendas. She paused, her gaze softening. We have given them the tools to fight it. A faint, distant alarm began to sound within the Citadel. Not an immediate threat, but a warning. The Citadel is registering incoming probes, Sharing explained. Word will spread quickly that something significant originated from Xiphos. Our presence here will be discovered soon. Then we need to leave, Knox stated, his practical mind already assessing their options. Our transport is still docked. Can we make it out? Sharing nodded. The power surge from the broadcast has charged our ship systems fully. We can depart. But where do we go, Knox? Our factions are exposed. Your world is safe for now, but there will be curiosity, questions. Knox looked around the vast, silent chamber, then back at Sharing. My farm, he said simply. It's still home. And it's a good place to start over. A good place to build something real away from all this. He gestured to the star map. The galaxy needs honesty, Sharing. Maybe we can show them what that looks like, starting small. Sharing's eyes, usually so sharp and analytical, held a warmth that melted away the warrior's facade. Your farm, she repeated, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. A strange place for a new beginning after all this. They walked back through the ancient corridors, the echo of their footsteps the only sound. The weight of their actions was immense, but so was the lightness of shared purpose. Back at their transport, Sharing took the pilot's seat, her movements fluid and confident. Knox settled into the co-pilot's chair, the familiar controls now a comfort rather than a mystery. Ready? Sharing asked, her gaze meeting his. Ready, Knox affirmed. The transport lifted off from the Citadel's docking bay, a faint hum replacing the ancient thrum. They ascended through the calm cavern, then punched through the turbulent atmosphere of Xiphos once more. This time, the storms felt less threatening, just a final obstacle on their path. As they broke free into the vast expanse of space, Xiphos shimmered below them, a beautiful, swirling gas giant that now held a secret of monumental significance. Sharing set a course for Earth, a planet that, to her, had once been an insignificant backwater, but now represented sanctuary and a future. Days later, the familiar blue marble of Earth filled their viewport. They navigated to Knox's secluded farm, landing the stolen Krona transport discreetly in the same pasture where Sharing had crashed. The wreckage of her original vessel was long gone, cleared away by Nox during her recovery. Stepping out onto the familiar soil, the crisp, clean air filled Nox's lungs. The scent of damp earth and growing things was a powerful anchor after the cold, sterile air of space. Sharing stood beside him, her orange fur ruffled by the gentle breeze, her enhanced senses taking in every detail of the quiet landscape. Her warrior armor was gone, replaced by simpler, modified clothing Nox had found for her, allowing her greater freedom of movement. "It's quiet," she observed, a new softness in her voice. "It is," Nox agreed, looking at her, peaceful. He reached out, taking her hand. Her grip was strong yet gentle, a testament to the strength and tenderness she had found within herself. The connection between them, forged in fear, reinforced by battle, and cemented by a shared, galactic-altering truth, was now a quiet, profound certainty. "Our work isn't over," Nox, Sharing said, looking out at the fields. "The galaxy will need guidance, new ways of thinking. But it starts here, doesn't it?" "It starts with us," Nox confirmed, squeezing her hand, "building something honest." They walked towards the farmhouse, side by side, two beings from different worlds, their alliance now a partnership, their connection a love that transcended stars. The galaxy might be in turmoil, but on Nox's farm, a new, hopeful future had already begun to bloom.